Moving right along with another system many of us are quite familiar with, it's called memory. It's the ability to record information, juggle several pieces of information at once, store it, and then retrieve it at a later time. So this could look like in a student, this kid just does not pay attention. He's constantly asking me, "What did you say?" And, "Huh? I didn't hear you." I almost wonder if his physical hearing could be an issue. When in reality, this student may have a neurodevelopmental weakness in memory recoding. Even though he is attending to the teacher, bits of information come into his brain and slide right back out again. By asking the teacher questions, he's trying to compensate for his brain's lack of ability to store that information. So before, I thought that memory was all about remembering information, facts, and processes and being able to call them to mind when needed. But now I know that memory has three major types of functions and that short term memory, long term memory, and active working memory are all major players in students' ability to learn, absorb, and call up information to solidify new learning. Memory is a major player in a lot of students' neurodevelopmental profiles. Another system is called neuromotor functions. This is the ability to control and coordinate the different muscles of the body. So this might look like a teacher saying, "You would not believe how klutzy this kid is. He is constantly falling off chairs, knocking over things in the classroom, and banging into people. I tell him all the time he really needs to watch where he is going and pay attention to others' personal space." When in reality, this student may have a neurodevelopmental weakness in gross motor memory. He is likely attempting to pay attention to his own body and the placement of other people and objects. As one of my students once said, he needs to mind his surroundings. But his mind doesn't process this information accurately or quickly enough to not cause problems for himself or for others. So before I thought that graphomotor skills were a subset of fine motor skills. But now I know that when we talk about graphomotor skills, they are a category all their own. So it's entirely possible that a student for whom the physical task of writing is painstakingly difficult may not just be avoiding the work associated with writing, even if he or she excels at painting or playing an instrument and easily zips her coat and ties her shoes. Another system is social cognition. This is the ability to succeed in social relationships with parents, teachers, and peers. It involves knowing what to talk about and when, with whom, and for how long, as well as having a sense of the social effect one has on others. Interestingly, this is a system that I see show up a lot in students who struggle with some of the major academic players like memory and attention. Many of my students who struggle in those areas have actually very strong skills in social cognition. So this might seem like he really doesn't seem to care much about his peers. He says and does offensive things all the time and doesn't show remorse when his peers are obviously offended or upset by his words and actions. When actually, the student maybe has a neurodevelopmental weakness in verbal pragmatics, and likely one in social behaviors as well. He may or may not have some level of autism spectrum disorder, which could make it difficult for him to realize, for example, that even though something may be true, when he states it in a matter of fact way, devoid of any emotion, it may not be the right thing to say now or ever. So before I thought that students who struggled with social cognition were either A, definitely on the autism spectrum, or B, developmentally behind, or their social skills were underdeveloped. But now I know that neurodevelopmental weaknesses in this area can contribute to a student's lack of ability to read the room. I realize that there is a whole lot more that goes into navigating the nuances of social relationships than meets the eye, and that students can grow in these areas when we realize that they need to be taught certain social skills explicitly, and we do so without judgment. So this goes beyond recognizing, I know you're not trying to hurt other people's feelings, so it seems like you've never learned this before, and it adds into the idea, let me teach you about this so that you can understand.